Here we are live, 7/22/2024, and a very important heads up here. Tomorrow is the IPS ISS viewing party. Tomorrow we're going to do this. We're on UFO watch, basically, but we're only accepting evidence according to the rules of evidence that I have posted. And so I want to review these before we go any further because if you're going to take part in this, now is the time to make your preparations. So, do you believe the International Space Station is more than a bad movie? Now's your chance to demonstrate its existence. So, tomorrow, from your location, you may record what you will have to allege in an unambiguous statement to be a spacecraft. But you have to record it from the beginning to the end of its visibility, and its duration is going to vary. So your video is going to be between 1 to 6 minutes, but it has to be timestamped, and you have to hit record before it shows up, and you cannot stop until it's out of sight. Any kind of clip that doesn't show the entirety of it could mistakenly present us with an airplane. And that's what I've received in the past. And one time I caught someone's supposed ISS going into the clouds. And I thought, okay, somebody's trying to pull my leg here. So you have to submit the video, exact time, location, and the tracking info from the website with your unambiguous statement of good faith that, quote, I believe this is a spaceship. Submit it to my email address, which is here, but only transits viewed on 7/23 will be accepted. And there's a very specific reason why. We want to see if we can confirm continuous flight with one craft, because there are many people who think that this is achievable with multiple planes staggered across the Earth, ready to trick people looking for the space station, which is supposedly the brightest object in the night sky, so it's unmistakable when you see it, although I've never seen it. And ISS believers will say, well, you never look up. You never touch grass. That's why you don't believe in chemtrails. No, I always look up. I watch sunsets. I watch sunrises. My work schedules have often corresponded with this. If anyone should have seen an anomalous bright light in the sky, it should have been me. And I haven't. But my lack of having viewed it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that I wasn't looking at the right time. So this time, we're going to synchronize our viewings all based off the same website. So this is a viewing party tomorrow. If you want to join, go to ips.monster and just read the rules. Alright, we are joined here by 737, Lando Rock, Gematria 101, HBIC, Conscious Daughter, Josh Lebsock. J-Dig says, I have a 5-minute pass tomorrow night. Western Hemisphere at 10:32. Oh, Western Washington at 10:32. Okay, good. Good. Now you're going to have to start recording at 10:31 and record until 10:37 and 5 seconds after it disappears. And according to previous examples of ISS sightings, it is accurate to the second. If you look at Jeranism's ISS transits, he does a countdown. He counts down from 10 to 1, then it shows up and it passes the moon. That's how precise it is, which is one reason why I rule out airplanes. I've ruled out airplanes because if you've ever traveled by air, you know it's impossible for airplanes to be perfectly on schedule to the second, much less 20 years straight, much less trackable real time with an app, and never missing. So your transits are never missed if you align your sites correct. So it should be interesting. You can email me at infiniteplanesociety@gmail.com. JC says, anything I can do from the UK as its path is not supposed to be over the UK. If it's not going to be in your area, you're not going to be able to participate in this particular viewing. You can encourage your friends, you can share it. I say glurfs too. Get your gloobers on board with this. If anybody should want to provide evidence, it should be the gloobers. Now, when I get the evidence, it's going to be evaluated according to the plan. And I'm going to submit this to a couple of experts, someone with experience as a pilot, air traffic control, and another professional, more or less, UFO debunker. And I'm going to see if they can debunk it or prove it to be an object in space. If the file is too big for email, you can email me and I'll give you some instructions on how to get it over to me. It'll be easy. Ed Kiley says evidence. Yeah, we're calling it evidence because the only reason why millions, if not billions, of people believe in aliens and flying saucers is because people have been accepting bad claims, bad faith claims, ambiguous claims, or claims just leave it open to the possibilities. Like maybe it was just an airplane, maybe it was a UFO. And that is a gulf that you don't just say maybe and you cross it. That's outside the realm of possibility. And I call it maybe Bigfoot logic for a reason. And it's because I overheard this conversation with a Bigfoot believer. They went camping in the woods, and the sign said, Sasquatch lives here. It's his husband and wife. And the husband didn't believe in Bigfoot. And he said at night they heard some animals, and his wife insisted it was Bigfoot. And then it occurred to me that the reason why is the one, she wanted to believe, and two, it was in the realm of her possibilities, which is purely subjective. And when it comes to the space station or UFOs, I think it's very much the same thing where any light in the sky might be it. It may be the ISS, maybe the Millennium Falcon, maybe the Starship Enterprise, maybe Santa. It's like, let's get rid of maybes and start with the known first. So if you're in the woods sleeping and you hear noise out there and you have a multiple choice test, what is it? A raccoon, a deer, or a Bigfoot? The test isn't valid. C, Bigfoot shouldn't even be an option. Similarly, I think spaceships and UFOs are off the table until they've been demonstrated to exist. I mean, we see the simulations, we see the TV show where they pretend to be in space, badly, I might add, terribly. Astronauts are just cosplaying. People need to figure that out. Astronauts are just cosplaying. I tweeted that today. We've often debated this. Who's the better astronaut? Buzz Aldrin or William Shatner? Considering that being an astronaut is just a form of cosplay and Shatner's been in more alien environments, I even think he did it with an alien in one of the movies. So he's been into deep space. And Buzz went to the moon 50 years ago. But you could argue that Buzz is a better actor because he's never broken his character. 55 years. It's been 55 years since they landed on the moon. He hasn't broken character. And Buzz Aldrin took the Holy Communion, wine and bread on the moon. Isn't that interesting? But to get to my point here, we're looking at more or less I guess the best way to describe it, I think, is a simulation. But we're trying to get people to provide some kind of visual evidence that there's something up there. There's a kind of an interesting debate about this. Some people believe there's nothing there. Some believe that there's a light that simulates the ISS, and some believe it's the ISS. And I would say that anything that could simulate the ISS is actually more incredible than the space station is supposed to be, considering that if it's in the atmosphere, it has to be some kind of airplane or craft which somehow mysteriously doesn't have any kind of propulsion. There's just all kinds of issues with this, but we're going to get to some realizations here very soon. And I think I'm right, but we'll see. J. Dig says Mark Kelly is being considered for VP. Loomer is in takedown mode. See, Mark Kelly didn't have the overview effect. The overview effect is when astronauts go so far up into space they see the Earth as one. They rise above politics. They rise above differences, and they just want one world so we can unite to save Gaia from man's dark side. They call it the overview effect. They say it's a cognitive shift. And you can find a list of astronauts who've had the overview effect. Scott Kelly got it. But sadly, his brother Mark did not. And he came back down to Earth, and he became a Democrat, politician, senator. Interestingly, Mark Kelly is married to the Gabby Gifford with the fake shooting Gerald Loeffner event. Hilarious psyop. If you can see that Gerald Loeffner's face is like Glenn Beck's face, photoshopped over Uncle Fester. I think it's a mashup. I think it's fake. But my point of it is Mark Kelly is astronaut, so he's in fake space. He's involved in politics, and he's involved in fake shootings. Like he's behind all of these curtains. He's behind the scenes in above and on the Earth psyops. You have to remember there are psyops happening in space and on the ground, but they're being produced by the same producers, the same company. the same PSYOP entertainment complex. Ed Kiley says the Union of Concerned Scientists estimates there are 5,500 dead satellites still in orbit. You know where they land them? They land the satellites in the satellite cemetery, which is at the Point Nemo, where, the book 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It's also at the Pole of Accessibility. It's like this place where Nemo goes, or whatever. Jules Verne's book is about this spot. And H.P. Lovecraft locates this as the place where the elder gods land in their dead cities beneath the sea right there. But yeah, coincidentally, the place where the elder gods are dead but dreaming, and where Jules Verne went 20,000 leagues under the sea, is where NASA dumps their done satellites. One of their satellites recently exploded. No, it was one of Russia's old space junk pieces just blew up. It was an old satellite, blew up into 100 pieces, and the astronauts had to take cover. And we were talking about this because Francis Ford Coppola's movie Megapolis has this theme of an old Russian satellite falling to Earth before everything kicks off. And this Megapolis was actually going to be released or produced before 9/11, but they stalled it because of 9/11, and it even contained elements which would have been considered predictive programming for 9/11. But this space junk thing is heating up. But let's get into, there's so much happening. Illuminati playing cards, we've been talking about this. Life follows psyops, and psyops follow art, or psyops imitate art. And what I mean is that the news events imitate the entertainment, and it's all by design. There's nothing mysterious about it. In fact, we've been really hammering this point recently because I feel like there are some things, some wrong ideas that, if clarified, would, I think, bring a lot of people to the realization of how fake it all is. There's no reason to hold on to it. There really isn't. It's a false worldview. You still have the real world. In fact, you can devote more to the real world when you dispense with the false overlay. I put out a couple articles about this. Don't go down with the sinking ship, SYNCHING. Synchromysticism is a conspiracy theorist trap. And I read that the other day, and then I added to it the Sync-Della effect. What do Mandela effects and synchromysticism have in common? So I'm just going to read this short article and then we'll discuss. Mandela effects and synchromysticism are similar in their fundamental claims. For example, 1. Both claim to be anomalous occurrences that challenge our understanding of reality. Both claim that there is a mysterious influence involved in media. Mandela effects are largely cultural artifacts and memes that differ now from when broadcast initially. Synchromysticism analyzes instances of media foreshadowing events in the news in the form of scenes or visual clues that seem to reference these future events. Both of these rule out man as the cause behind these various anomalies. Both appear to give the believer a sense of seeing through the matrix when looking at these artifacts placed by unidentified sources that are, quote, higher than man. So when you're seeing Mandela effects, and no one else is, you're seeing through the matrix. Well, the Mandela effects are real, as we understand, but they're not the result of reality shifts. It's implanted false memories, gaslighting, retroactive interference, interrogator bias, a desire to believe and to belong, among other factors, but it's not reality shifting. Similarly, the synchromystic explanation falls short. Yeah, there are patterns in the entertainment that are beyond coincidence, and to dismiss it as a coincidence is to utterly miss the point of it and what it really is. It's part of the standard operating procedure of mass mediation. You can almost look at it as advertising, product placement, but it's narrative placement. And these placements take form in multiple modalities. It's verbally spoken memes, visual depictions. All of it is just being data dumped into your subconscious. And they've been doing this forever. And it's not just predictive programming, it's concurrent, real-time parallel between movies and TV shows that are just coming out and the mirrored events on the world stage, and then you have reinforcement programming. So it's non-stop. It wouldn't make you couldn't even call these anomalies. Now, what's more, this is the logical flaw. They both share this. By ruling out man, synchromystics and Mandela affected admit non-human interference. They don't all want to come out and just say it. Non-humans are doing it, but some will say it. Some will say this is beyond what man could do. Well, what are these non-humans? Where are they? Who causes Mandela effects? Because if God, then you could call them miracles. If the devil, then the Mandela effect proves that there's a God and a devil, and that you can find evidence for this by watching television and looking at these patterns, which sounds like madness because it kind of is. Mysticism is actually kind of a form of madness in a way. Who causes predictive programming? If God, then it's evidence of the divine authorship of media. Oh, look what God did. You know, God caused this movie with Harrison Ford as the president being shot at to be released, and the trailer comes out the same day, and he's got all these overlapping connections. God is what? Giving us hints about fake things? Now, if it's something more, or the universe, let's just take God out of it, just a higher power, it's still evidence of something supernatural. And I think this is what makes it so compelling. So if you're a Mandela affectee or synchromystic, can you name your cause? If not man, then who or what do you attribute these reality bending phenomena? And it's tempting, just to just throw anything out there. You could say it's caused by time traveling Hollywood directors using CERN. But that's not skeptical. And synchromysticism and Mandela effects are supernatural phenomenon or the product of human agency. And I would argue that these are attributable to man because one, Mandela effects are not fakeable at scale. You couldn't possibly change all the artifacts, all the movies in everyone's home. You couldn't change everyone's underwear tags with the Fruit of the Loom. You just couldn't do it. But none of the claims are backed by evidence. The so-called residue doesn't exist. And my research, our research, demonstrates how the effect is created. And a lot of it's how the question is framed. It's gaslighting witnesses to the Mandela effect, prompting them, which is gaslighting, to doubt their perceptions, while interfering with recalled memories. It's a carny game. Predictive programming exists. Concurrent programming exists, and we're very well studied on it. And it is so specific to specific political messaging that to argue a supernatural cause is to say that the supernatural agency behind media manipulation is a liberal Democrat with Trump derangement syndrome. Like it doesn't match up to reality. What's more likely is we're looking at propaganda. Now, there are instances of advertising, marketing, and conditioning that I think fit this description. You have to consider how the collective psyche is manipulated, how they change society collectively. And I think what they're doing, or what they are doing observably, is they're using propaganda to saturate the collective. The collective psyche is being saturated with themes, mind viruses, images, memes, scenes, all intended to make future fake news believable. Boring neuro pathways in advance. So what you see is just a foregone conclusion, the logical consequence of what came before, no matter how ridiculous or unlikely. And we are correct in this. That's why we were perfectly ready for the Trump head wound. We were talking about it up until the minute it happened. We were live when it did happen, in fact, analyzing predictive programming from the Atlantic where it has his ear clipped. So the power elite, and this is how it works. The power elite writes and implements our history with news media, which is supplanted by immersive propaganda that synchronizes news and entertainment. So this synchronization of news and entertainment is what has some people baffled. They can't figure out this relationship because they look at it in compartments. Oh, here's entertainment, here's the news, these are separate categories. And no, they're not separate. It's a unified field, the monolith. is the perfect symbol. You have to conceive of it as a monolith, and we have evidence that it is a monolithic mind control system. It's ubiquitous, it's universal. The evidence for this would be 9/11, 2020, and the space program. Anything that they're ubiquitously agreeing upon suggests that it all has a common controller. Of course, they hide this. Of course, they give you the appearance of squabbling and division. It's all to keep you in their mind war. Truthers are given alternate theories to explain patterns and coincidences. This is what happened after White Noise on Netflix preceded the train derailment in Palestine, Ohio, which, by the way, is 42 miles from Butler, Pennsylvania. Is that what they were saying? I got to get the exact. They made this point here about 42 miles from. Anyway, we were talking about this Palestine Ohio connection, and Infowars said, "Oh, this is because there are dark occultists telling us what they're going to do." Revelation of the method, and they say it in ominous tones, and it's like, so you're just saying wizards are doing predictive programming? That doesn't make sense because we're not only seeing predictive programming for terror attacks and tragedies and disasters. We see it for all kinds of stuff. But anyway, there's a 42-mile stretch in American politics by the Washington Examiner saying it's the most important. And they make a lot of points about the stretch between Butler and East Palestine where the chemical train fake derailed. Fake derailment, fake headshot. Interesting connection was made here by the media. But anyway, my point of it is we called it out as fake, and we had a lot of truthers running around saying, no, this is revelation of the method. They did it for real. Look at all the dead fish. I had someone screaming at me, look at the dead fish. Everyone's going to die. It's like crisis actor fish, is what I said, dismissively. And it turned out it was all fake. So the truthers are given false explanations, so they don't look too deep. When they see these patterns, they think, oh, it's evidence of dark occultism. They're not supposed to know that entertainment and news media are synchronized, that it's all done for one purpose, which is worldview formation. Synchromysticism is a flawed explanation, and I'm happy to debate it. I'm happy to debate it if you could provide your God. Who's the god of predictive programming? What imp? What gremlin? Who is in the machine doing this? Who are you asserting? Who is or what is being introduced? What third party that you're positing here can we discuss? Because I think the most likely explanation is man, and I'm totally willing to debate it, and there's a reason why we have to. This is a guardrail. Anyone who accepts synchromysticism is not looking at the big picture and the connectedness between all messaging. And I think this is one of the big achievements of the one world order, the old world order. Rebranded as new, but it's old. It's just got a new paint job. One of their biggest, I think, feats was hiding in plain sight, fracturing Big Brother into millions of facets so no one can see the big picture. And you can't see the big picture, you can't get the overview effect until you step outside the world stage. And our overview effect, our off-world stage perspective, is realer than what the cosplaying astronauts pretend to have with their view of the ball from space. So auto-hoaxing the world stage construct. That's what we're doing here. We are auto-hoaxing the world stage construct. And this means we have to oppose the reflexive antis. We have to be anti-anti and anti-pro. The anti-position is a trap. And some of the orthodoxies were challenging. Space station sightings, Mandela effects, chemtrails. And our intention is to know the truth, not to embrace alternate beliefs. And right now I'm suggesting that synchromysticism has served its purpose. It was there, caught a lot of people's attention, but it led them to the wrong conclusion. And I think the real conclusion is far more interesting. We're not stuck here thinking, oh, we cracked the matrix, now we can just sit back and look at the foolish lemmings overreacting. No, I think this is a more relevant insight, I think, to the future, our own personal lives and how we, our quality of life, in fact, I think. It's a quality of life thing. Peace of mind is achievable. You can unplug and there's no real consequences. You can take an objective distance from the mass media mind war once you understand what it really is. I mean, if you believe in nukes, you have accepted a God construct. I'd like to see you pray to it. Like, oh, look, there's a nuke on TV. Get under your desk and genuflect and quiver. It'd be hilarious. I mean, it's not fair that people have been programmed to believe this stuff and to think that ducking and covering can save them, but it's a humiliation ritual. That nuclear warhead on a missile, that's an obelisk. It's a symbol of state power. And if you believe in these God constructs, you don't have the moral nor intellectual high ground. You have been indoctrinated into a cult, a doomsday cult. All right, joined by Mason Free, Tom Servo. You will never be Mason Free. How can you be Mason Free? Tom3 says IPS should talk with some of the sync people. We're just going to let it sort itself out. The raft is open and it's expanding. People who are going to cling to truth or orthodoxies can stay. I mean, to me, I have every intention here of creating as wide of a rift as we can. We're quarantining. Metalmorph says there are 11 AI chatbots. You're talking to yourself. I was working with a chatbot. It's $20 a month to subscribe, but I was working with creating an IPS chatbot, which would answer questions related to autohoaxology, and I had dumped into its little AI brain all of the articles on the subject that we have published. Okay, continuing. Metalmorph says AI shadow banned all humans and have replaced with AI chatbots. Well, I like these chatters, so if you're AI, it's cool with me. Yeah, Harrison Ford's birthday, 7/13, which is huge because, of course, he was playing the president, and the shooting was on 7/13, and the movie just released, Captain America, was called New World Order, but now it's Brave New World, had him surviving an attempt on his life, falling on his face, in a theater. So you have Ford Theater, a little bit of Abe Lincoln tossed in, 7/13, Julius Caesar's birthday, and the Julius Caesar in the Park 2016 featured Trump being murdered. Because they've been portraying the killing of Trump for some time. This is one of the themes, one of the repeated themes that we've been treated to as they write our history in front of us and they act it out on the world stage. It's all a show. That is not an overstatement. It's not hyperbole. It's all bred in circuses. But when you say it's all, people are like, you can't mean all. Well, they fake moon landings. They fake all kinds of stuff routinely. It's not a stretch to say all. People will believe anything. But it's because their minds are entrained. You think you're being entertained? No, you're being entrained. You're being synchronized with the worldview forming mechanism of mass media and fake news. So again, yeah, Harrison Ford, president, Julius Caesar, Trump, shooting, the timing of the release. That is not predictive programming. That is concurrent. It's real time mirroring. Creates an immersive illusion. Ed says, many truthers have an emotional block accepting ubiquitous fakery. Yeah, we call them it's realers. Shout out to Synchromorpheus. A new term for the lexicon, the it's realers. Oh, but it's real. I had to debate with this character, Boogeyman, who was just so obsessed with the idea that there were real 9/11 jumpers, but everything else was fake. It's like, I don't believe in planes. No, that's silly. But no, it was fake at the Pentagon, but the jumpers were real. It's like, let them go. Like, you need therapy? Like, let it go. It's just a trauma story. It wasn't even depicted live at the time. And you can find explanations if you look into Gelatin B. We've talked about this stuff ad nauseum, but the key point is this. You're looking at a magic show on a stage. If you can't figure out from your seat how the magician pulled off an illusion, what is your default? Your default should be, I don't know how it was done, but I know it was a trick. Your default shouldn't be, I don't know how it was done, therefore it was magic. Oh, he really cut that woman in half because I don't know how it was done. No, that's not how it works with any of the psyops. Just because you can't figure out how a specific feat was achieved using Hollywood special effects and movie magic doesn't mean that you have to accept the premise that it was real. And if you're psyop aware and you're informed about predictive programming, then this shouldn't be a challenge. We shouldn't be losing people with every psyop. Oh, this one got me. Sorry, auto hoaxers. I'm going back to Trutherville. That happened with Vegas. When Vegas happened, we had plenty to contradict what they were claiming, but we had a lot of people who were part of the Q train, which is now a roller coaster. If you were on the Q train, it's all up and down. It's a roller coaster. Upside down, change falls out of your pockets. It's a huge grift. But we lost a lot of people because they said, you can't say nobody died. I'm like, really? Oh, by the way, pop quiz. How old was Jason Aldean? Mr. Try That in a Small Town. How old was he on 10/1/2017 during the shooting? Joined by Let's Go. Good evening, Raft. Thank you for joining. Anx G says they prayed to the nuke in the original Planet of the Apes. That's ironic. Fascinating. Phallic nuke god, says Lean Dion. Well, yeah, it's the Earth god. Mason Free says I'm not a chatbot. Tom Serva says he used to have a couple hundred listening. Where's the old crew? Well, let's take a look at the numbers right now. I'll say thanks to all of you who are here participating in the chat. We have about 50 listening on Radio King, TuneIn, Paranormal Radio. We have 41 on Twitter. We have, oh, that backup YouTube channel was shut down. We have 52 on this YouTube channel. And about 15 scattered from Odyssey to Twitch. So I think our numbers are probably closer right now to about 150, 200. But our numbers will increase. Mark my words. I'll see if I can activate one of my backup channels. I have so many socks. You know, we've had more than 150 channels since we started this thing. Okay, moving on here. Tom Servo, yeah, to answer your question, where is the old crew? On some nights, we have bigger audiences. But I think what's going to happen is we're going to have to slowly aggregate those numbers again. And I look forward to weeks like this, psyops like this. I have people texting me and people who haven't listened in months. And they're like, the Trump head wound thing happened and I instantly thought of your channel. Or space junk hit some house in Florida, thought of your channel. So as the world stage turns and as they introduce more and more of the incoming agenda that we have described in advance, I think a lot of people will return. Yeah, G 33, he was 33. Rome, 33. JC, 33. Yeah, Jason Aldean was 33. And he was at the RNC and got a shout out. And speaking of, try that in a small town, that video was controversial because it had BLM riots. So it was kind of an implied threat to BLM, and they kind of walked that back. But I think the damage was done. The message was sent. And there's a new psyop in the works. Benjamin Crump is running out onto the world stage. And Benjamin Crump is, well, I used to call him Benjamin Gump or Forrest Crump, because it seems like there's not a historically significant psyop that he doesn't show up at and represent. And he's a good indicator that you're looking at a psyop. Attorney Benjamin Crump about Sonia Massey's family on the release of body cam fatal shooting. So this is a sick little snuff film. These two cops go into a house. They ask for an ID rudely. The old woman has water boiling. She gets up to take the boiling water. And the cop, who has these conspicuous tattoos, and I think these tattoos may be used by the media to indicate that he was part of some gang or white power. There's going to be something. The ADL will look at it. He's got runes. He's got skulls. So it's one of these outrages, and this one's pretty hard to watch because she's turning off the boiling water and the cop freaks out and she says, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And then he shoots her in the head. And they keep saying it's a headshot, don't bother with the CPR. Like, they just put her down. And you don't see it. They lie and claim she was throwing the hot water at them, which wasn't the case. So this whole thing just got released just hours ago. So I've been kind of waiting to see what happens with it. There's no way there's not some kind of big reaction. I believe this individual has been charged with murder. So we'll go ahead and bring up some information. Just on this one, the main thing here, if you look at him, um, white, blonde, this is like, to me, this is a perfect psyop. They choose these characters for a reason, like Derek Western chauvinism. See the skulls on his arm? And then the other tattoo was some kind of runes, which isn't racist in itself, not at all. But when you go through the ADL's website, the AOK symbol, the bowl cut, Norse runes, these things are all just red flags for them. So there's going to be something in here. It looks to me like a character. Speaking of characters, Joe Biden dropped out on the 21st on Ice Cream Day, which just seems like a bizarre joke. Thine ears shall bleed. Many have been pointing this stuff out. And I'm engaging with people on Twitter. And some of them are saying the devil's doing predictive programming. I had this conversation with Hi Karate. So Witsit Gets It said, what are the odds that a film titled Thine Ears Shall Bleed would come out on July 9th, 4 days before the attempt? And the comment sections were mostly abuzz with people saying stuff like this. The master conductor and his minions are trying to drag humanity into the pit. So they're attributing this stuff to the devil. And that's because, again, these appear to be coincidences and synchronicities. These appear to be events just falling into place. It must be baffling, honestly, to be a truther and to be blinded by compartmentalization must be baffling. I can't imagine how I would feel if I was watching the news and I saw the movies projecting or predicting it in some way, and if I didn't have an explanation. I'd be like, wow. Are they manufacturing reality by putting stuff on the TV, some kind of mass hermetic magical ritual? I mean, we've talked about these different explanations, just kind of working it out, what would actually explain what we're seeing. Occam's razor, and when you look closely at the political messaging, you can see, yeah, unless the universe is a liberal Democrat with Trump derangement syndrome, you can just rule out any higher power. Nope. We know how this works. Ryan Garcia said, Jake Paul will lose tonight, confirmed, just got word. I asked him if this was before or after the earthquake swallowed Los Angeles, which was supposed to happen on the 6th. Ryan Garcia has been playing the role of prophet, and this is one of the things I've been seeing in Trutherville. I've seen what seems to be the emergence of a new national pastime. Like, to be a truther today is to be kind of a troll, like a weekly world news tabloid troll. And I have nothing against it. I think it's interesting to observe from an outside perspective, because what I see are truthers manufacturing bad evidence, throwing stuff out there for clicks and for lulz, for laughs. And they don't really believe any of it. It's like Hillary Clinton's a reptilian, or she's having an alien's baby. It's at that level of trolling, and I don't think it's malicious. Not everyone who posts terrible Twitter threads with bad conspiracies that haven't been really thought about, they're not all doing it for money or grift. I think it's like a pastime, like storytelling. Like, if you can imagine people around a campfire telling stories, just trying to entertain everybody. It's just getting through the night. And I think our screens are like this ubiquitous campfire light, and we're all sitting around, and I think people just want to entertain. So I'm thinking about changing the name from truthers to truthertainers. When it comes to truthers on Twitter who are just endlessly shit posting eminently debunkable, bogus nonsense for clicks and entertainment. Again, nothing against it. Hero Paranormal says, subscribing to the IPS is the best $5 I've spent in a month. Keep up the great work, Tim. Thank you. I wouldn't be able to do this without that help. Keeping gas in the tank. And we've been very, very productive and consistent. We have been cutting edge. I'm talking like when it comes to predictive and concurrent programming breakdown, we have been cutting edge. We are catching stuff on the first time around and publish. And it's not a race. But what I'm saying is nothing is missing us, but then collectively we have a ton of sources. And between all of our sources aggregated into our research pool at Gilded, we don't miss very much. And none of us are triggered. None of us are fooled. I didn't see anybody debating on this one, about, oh no, it was so real, it must be real. Don't say it's fake. What about the victims? We haven't had that. Truth retainers, we'll go with that. I'll go ahead and highlight that. Lean Dion says truth retainers is great. Yeah, like because I wasn't getting mad, but I was getting into some Twitter beef with some guy who said that his 5-year-old does better art than me. I'm like, cool, sell it on eBay, pay for their college. I mean, mine makes money, and it's more amazing if a 5-year-old does it. But anyway, this truther was just posting a lot of stuff like chemtrails and other things that just were kind of silly, and he tries to convince people that Prince didn't really die, which I agree with. I think he came back as his sister and attended his own funeral. That's me. But this theory is that he came back as Kamala Harris, which is just ridiculous. You can find younger videos of Kamala. She has a background, a history, attorney general. She's not Prince. She can't play guitar. Look at the hands. There are a million points debunking it, but the point of it, I don't think that I should have to go debunk some ridiculous claim. And so I look at these claims. I'm like, okay, you're doing this just for fun, right? You don't mean this. And he's like, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, why are you presenting it? If like maybe, maybe not. No, that's engagement bait. And I told him, I said, look, I flagged your post here. And I flagged it because it's engagement bait, and that's illegal. Well, we had this back and forth, and I realized, okay, I'm not even dealing with people who are trying to deconstruct the world stage and figure out where it ends and reality begins and where the confusion really starts. Like, no, they're not really trying to figure out anything. They're doing it to entertain people around this communal campfire that we call the internet. So I'm fine with it. Be truth retaining. Truth retain me. Conspiratain me, whatever. But I'm not going to consider that to be close to or analogous to what we do, or even valid. No, I mean it's valid as a creative enterprise. It's expression. It's valid in that sense. Like the Weekly World News, which I happen to love. The Weekly World News was, it was deliberately and consciously designed to look unbelievable. The Photoshop was corny. It was meant to be bad, and because of that, they made bad Photoshop cool. Like I like the bad Photoshop. So if you have bad conspiracy theories and bad claims, but they're entertaining, yeah, I'll give it a pass. I won't flag it anymore. Lando Rock says, wait until they find out Biden might be dead. Yeah, I've seen a lot of truthers saying Biden's dead, but then Biden put out a notice about the woman who was killed by the cop. So if he's still throwing accelerant on psyops, he's not dead yet. Lieutenant Weinberg says, how can I watch your updates to NASA and the obelisk? Good question. I don't know what happened to it. And I'm thinking about doing an updated version of the Metascript decoded. It's been a couple of years, and much of it has borne out, and I think I could add quite a bit to it. And that was before we had coined a lot of new terms, and I think we have a better grasp of things now than we did then. Speaking of Metascript, 80 years ago, July 20th, an assassination attempt left Hitler slightly wounded, but it rejuvenated his cult of personality ahead of his country's calamitous defeat the next year. That's from Aaron Rupar. Yeah, there was a bomb, and Hitler's trousers were singed by the blast, and he suffered a perforated eardrum. Someone pointed this out. So, Trump is Hitler, ear, obvious connections. Did Jake Paul lose? Any updates on that? I want to know if Prophet Ryan Garcia was right. Somebody could fill me in on this. Was Jake Paul knocked out? Not that I care. I'm almost ashamed I even know who these people are. Flights delayed, canceled at Boise Airport following crowd strike. I mean, how many planes were canceled during this crowd strike outage? Anyone? Pop quiz. How many thousands of planes were canceled? He won? Okay. Jake Paul won? Well, Ryan Garcia admitted that he was just trolling truthers and getting clicks and making money. Yeah, if you answered 33,000, you would be correct. 33,000 planes worldwide were delayed or canceled because of CrowdStrike. JC got it right. Oh, Jake Paul knocked the other guy out. Well, anyway, I don't take Ryan Garcia seriously. He's the whole Bohemian Grove Me Too guy. Busy56 said, I want to give you a couple predictive programming ideas you may not have heard of. Veep on HBO predicted Kamala Harris taking over after the president decides not to seek re-election. The creator, when asked how he predicts the future, said, I'm still working on the ending. So he's a meta scripter to watch out for. On season finale to The Boys, season 4, episode 8, Vice President Newman is about to take over after the president dies. She's assassinated by Bill Butcher, the head of The Boys, who is connected to the CIA. The Speaker of the House takes over as president and is Homelander's puppet. Now, Homelander's the Trump guy. Maybe something predictive with Kamala. Goes on to say, I know how recently you were talking about older predictive programming. I watched 1957's Sweet Smell of Success. Tells the story of sleazy newspaper columnist J.J. Hunsaker, and based on Walter Winchell, who uses his connections to ruin his sister's relationship. Anyway, it goes on to say, the actor looks like JFK. People are trying to smear Dallas by calling him a communist and a pothead. Sydney delivers the news of a smear saying the Dallas skull is badly dented. You can play marbles with his eyeballs. This is clearly predictive programming for the Kennedy assassination. Yeah, there's something in that. I'll have to get those clips. That sounds interesting, especially the reference to the Dallas skull. There were references to previous assassinations on the way to Dealey Plaza. The news commentators were talking about it on the day. You have two Frank Sinatra films, Suddenly and Manchurian Candidate, that seemingly predict the JFK thing, and some even blamed those films for inspiring Oswald. Here's some Illuminati playing cards. Sniper, Enough is Enough, and Enough is Enough was stated by Hulk Hogan. He said, enough is enough when they try to shoot our president. And enough of is enough was also stated by the attorney representing, or one of the individuals representing the victim in this police shooting we were just looking at. A couple of other things in my notes. And yeah, thank you for sending me those Veep references. I'll have to look into that as well. I was pointing out that Fallout had insinuated in the character of Betty Pearson, Kamala Harris. And then I think there's a similar thing with Civil War insinuated. There's a number of movies, but this has been a reoccurring theme. In fact, think about it like this. If you look at all these different movies as connected, in Fallout, you have Betty Pearson taking over Vault 33. And they have this massacre, they clean it up, and at the end, and it insinuates the election was stolen, by the way. In the end, you have this drop of blood on the Trump character's head, on the right side of his head. So that signifies the takeover. At the same time, the movie Civil War is out, where they kill Trump. And they make it a point to bring out a black woman soldier to kill the Trump character. Well, what is that? So there's, again, the repeated theme here. The Betty Pearson, the soldier, and there are other movies on Netflix we could point to that have been conditioning us for this eventuality. By the way, Alex Jones is not the only conspiracy theorist to be sued by alleged crisis actors. This is from Sky News. There's a auto hoaxer who described the Manchester arena bombing as a hoax, and he's being sued by some of the survivors, and his lawyer has said that he's perfectly entitled to believe the attack was a hoax. Martin Hibbett and his daughter Eve were among the hundreds of people injured at the Ariana Grande concert in May of 2017. This, quote, self-styled journalist Richard Hall had alleged that this was fake, and he proved that they were crisis actors, or he tried to, so he's been sued. That's Richard Hall. Now, I don't know if he's legit or if this is a takedown of conspiracy theorists, But I would argue that it's in it's really not a good idea to stalk or harass any of the actors associated with any of these events. We're looking at the directors. We're looking at the scripts. What we see here with like Sidethorn journalist Alex Jones, Richard Hall, are people who are going for the low level types, and these low level types instantly have sympathy, and it turns the conspiracy theorists into villains. So I kind of think this Richard Hall character might be like Sidethorn journalist, might be like Alex Jones. Like they may be part of the takedown of quote self-styled journalists, independent researchers, free thinkers. These are the new terrorists. Okay, moving on. Jay Digg says, if Biden dies, does Kamala become 47 or will she become 46B? Interesting question, because yeah, Trump has the whole 40. I think it'd be great, because Marcus Goldfinch bought the domain 47.live, and they're all about the 47, and it would be pretty funny if they had to change that. My take on it is you look at the predictive programming built into the Super Bowls, and I think Super Bowl 47 has a lot of pertinence to what we're about to experience. That was the so called Blackout Bowl. And think about CrowdStrike. We're being prepared for a blackout. That was the one where Beyonce performs, and then you have 33 minutes of darkness. And that was Super Bowl 47, and now here we are in the presidential race for 47. And I think there's a bit of foreshadowing in that, as well as Leave the World Behind, White Noise, and many others. My Third Eye says, I've watched some 9/11 stuff with Richard Hall. My gut is he's a guardrail. Yeah, probably. Sacrificial lamb there. Like, this is what happens if you try to expose these conspiracies, or conspiracy theorists are harassing people, which is such a dumb narrative. Like, Alex Jones is being held responsible for other people doing stuff makes zero sense. But we're way past that. If they're adhering to the false flag narratives or MSM plus narratives, or if they're only pointing out one fake event every few years, but everything else is assumed to be real, if that's what you're looking at, then the person is mainstream alternative. They're not off-world stage. They're not trying to unveil anything. It's truth entertainment. Yeah, Cope says, isn't Trump connected to 4884? Yeah, that's another good one. So the scene that we're referencing, and that character, the Homelander, has the bloody face. That's season 4, episode 8. And of course, remember, you had the 4.8 magnitude earthquake on the eclipse day hitting Trump's place, and then he put his face on the eclipse day. You had this video Trump retruthed where his face is superimposed over the sun, and we were looking at that combined with the ground zero earthquake on his golf course, and it said MAG 4.8, like MAGA, and so 4884 has been associated. So even that we took to be, get ready, they're going to do some headshot on Trump. Lieutenant Weinberg said he's on the Beau Planes channel on BitChute with Morgan Reynolds and James Lear, and they say the planes really did hit. Maybe it was a hologram. Yeah, that's the thing. There was no visual phenomenon to correspond with an airplane. What you have is video composite overlays and liars. The false eyewitnesses are a key component of manufacturing the illusion. A lot of people believe eyewitnesses. Lean Dion says, my normie friends watched AJ Trial Doco, the HBO one, and they suggested, yeah, they think that they think that these other actors have been made victims because of Jones, and yeah, they definitely see Alex Jones as a villain. And he didn't do anything with it. I mean, if you're going to be sued for $1 trillion, you might as well just spill all the beans and do some real damage. But no, he's basically there to, I think, serve as a limited hangout. Like, they know some people are going to figure it out. So they let one thing out, and anybody who sees it is now databased. It's a honeypot. So Sandy was a honeypot. Sandy honeypot. It's not even worth talking about. There's 1,000 other more interesting shootings we could talk about. And That one serves as a honeypot to get a grasp on what they've figured out, who knows the most, who's putting things together, and then they can contaminate the pool. It's always been an op. Was it intentionally leaked? I think so. Looking at the people who were there at ground zero, I suspect that the whole thing was an intentional leak. Doesn't mean it wasn't a hoax, it means it was a hoax. The whole concept of a limited hangout is letting the truth out, but diluting it or controlling it. And of course, controlling those who have figured it out. SpaceX has dreamed up a Dragon ship on steroids to drag the ISS out of space. The supersized Dragon spacecraft has a larger trunk and a whopping 46 Draco engines to send the ISS to a fiery doom. I've been somewhat predicting something like this, that SpaceX would somehow be involved in the destruction of the ISS, but I thought it would be an accident. This is why I'm updating the book Metascript Decoded, because in there I suggested that there would be a biblical story here, where the dragon pulls down a third of the stars, meaning the ISS and a bunch of satellites fall because of the dragon screwing up, or it could be intentional. It could be Russia shooting it down, but I feel like the dragon and this space drama with the ISS going down has been in the script for some time. So I'm not surprised to see this. And Musk is going to be paid quite a lot of money to do it. We have this weird clip here. I'll just play it. It's Elvis Presley shooting the TV, and I think there's something in this.
Here this morning at the International to appear at the first major hotel built off the Strip. It's Elvis's first public appearance after nearly 10 years in seclusion. These are years that have seen a decline in popularity among rock and roll artists. It isn't surprising, though. No rock act survives forever.
Maybe they're right, Ray. Maybe it's all over. Hillbilly Cat was just a flash in the pan, a novelty just wore off.
You wait. You gonna knock him dead?
Yeah, if that Lee Harvey Oswald out, don't get me first.
No doubt, Elvis.
So he makes this Lee Harvey Oswald reference. You're going to knock him dead if Lee Harvey Oswald doesn't get me first?
They got FBI men.
I got to get that statement again. He says, wait, you're going to knock him dead?
Yeah, if that Lee Harvey Oswald out, don't get me first.
No doubt, Elvis.
If Lee Harvey Oswald don't get me first. And then when when Trump showed up at the RNC, they made it look like the Elvis comeback special. If you look at how they did the background and the lettering.
They got FBI men all over the place. Probably just a hoax anyway.
Probably just a hoax anyway. And now, the very next line.
Even lower in the polls than the Beatles. And this surprising decision to do a comeback show at the International seems to be do or die.
Apparently he loses to the Beatles, so he pulls out his gun. And JL says Beatles is an anagram for the beast. And I believe Charles Manson suggested that they represented the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and he read all kinds of apocalyptica into the White Album. Revelation 9 he took to be a call to rise up and kill the pigs and the police, just all kinds of stuff. But if you recall, the whole Manson thing was calling for a race war. In fact, Charles Manson was trying to blame it on the Black Panthers. So that's like a psyop. It's like, wow, he was trying to psyop people into kind of like what they're doing right now. Like he should have worked for CNN instead of, going solo with this cult. Okay, now here's, again, Elvis making a reference to Lee Harvey Oswald might get him first. This guy says it's all a hoax. He's talking about a comeback. And now here he is shooting the TV.
Brilliant career. He revolutionized the entire music.
So if you want that clip, it's at minds.com/Infinite Plane Society. Just kind of strange. Kuabear91 says, Chalk Body Outline says he can't see the smoking evidence that the ear event was fake. I would say arguing that the ear event was fake would be like saying that the next SpaceX launch is real. That the next CubeSats are real. Or the Mars mission will be real. You can't add real on top of fake. The entire infrastructure is designed for fabricating a worldview. That's never changed. It's been this way since its inception. Mass media entertainment has always been monolithic in its purpose, and its purpose has been to saturate the psyche, advertise to it, program it, form it, and mold it to synchronize and entrain it with the news, which becomes history. They're making history. And this infrastructure of deception and worldview formation doesn't change. It's not going to change. They're not suddenly, oh, today we're going to be real reporters. No, it doesn't work that way. And you don't have enough information to say it's real. The burden of proof is still on you. And you have to weigh your evidence against predictive and concurrent programming, and you have to explain that away. We've figured out their formula: predictive, concurrent, reinforcement programming, mind entrainment via entertainment to future fake news, which becomes fake history. Yeah, we figured it out. So if you're going to assert something is real all of a sudden, you have an error in your outlook on media itself. It's what I call an epistemological inversion. Your head is through the screen. You have accepted the screen as an authority. I saw it on TV, it looks real, I can't figure out how they did it, therefore it's real. No, it's a magic show, and nothing's going to change that. It was a magic show 55 years ago when they faked the moon landing. It's a magic show today. If you think it was real, let me know at what point did they start telling the truth? At what point did the media become honest? At what point do they stop simulating what this place is by augmenting our realities with hyperstitions, with augmented virtual reality artifacts, with false narratives and CGI? Anyway, I respect everyone's opinions. I would be interested to see how these hold up because I'm open to evidence. You show me evidence, then I'm with you. But the evidence right now supports the hoax premise, given that media is there to do hoaxes. If you went out to Vegas or one of these places, you have these magicians like uh, Chris Angel or something. It's really hard to tell, how is this guy levitating? Maybe you can't visually discern how the trick is pulled off, but you're not obligated to say, I can't figure it out. You fooled me, therefore it's real. No, you know that he's lying to you visually. He's tricking you. So it's all a trick. Rock E. Shepherd says, Satan and his minions faking the book of Revelation to make you think tribulation is coming when you know it's already happened. Well, they do a number of things here. And I wish I had more time. I actually have to leave. But there is a number of templates that they use as they tell their history, a number of ways they characterize things. So, for example, you could make these, and these are beyond just analogies, these are actually deliberate. They have reinvented the flood myth. They have given atheists a god constructs. They have reinvented archaic concepts and given them a scientific basis. Aliens are a fraud, were consciously designed to replace angels so that the atheistic people still buy into this older paradigm where they are open up to the possibility of higher beings. It's mind control top to bottom, and they do use biblical sources for inspiration. Conscious Daughter says, did you notice the suspect's name in the murder of Hogan's hero, actor Bob Crane, is John Carpenter? Bob Crane's birthday is 7/13. So Bob Crane, wasn't there a head wound? And no, I didn't get the John Carpenter thing. Fascinating. Well, we have quite a lot more to talk about, but I have to leave here momentarily. The main thing we're watching out for is this drama with Benjamin Crump. I'm glad we got over this Elvis thing, because that's just strange. We talked about the synchro-della effect. Synchromysticism falls short as an explanation. We can move past it. Bad explanations are a waste of resources. We are diverted and distracted by so many things. And when we have, well, what we have here, our perspective on how this thing works is pretty unique. And I think it's worth expanding and bringing more people into this because we get the answers. We're seeking answers and we're finding them. We're not just promulgating question marks and walking around clueless. We're not confused. We're not ambiguous. We have cracked their codes, and I see evidence that there's attempts at damage controlling this, calling things fake, but it doesn't matter. Like even if People on the far left say this Trump thing was staged. It was a hoax. From their perspective, those words don't mean anything because they have this compartmentalization that they're still in a part of. And when I say compartmentalization, it has to do with this literalism, media literalism. The worldview promulgated by media is taken to be a literal facsimile of what we're living in. They don't see the edges. They don't see where the real ends and the fake begins. And that's all, of course, by design. So we're kind of in the fog, collectively, mankind, this mass agreed upon illusion. And calling one thing fake isn't enough. It's like what I make this analogy with these conspiracy theorists that focus on certain psyops, but they assume everything else that's not a psyop is real. It's like, no, it's a forest of fakery. And it's easy to miss it by focusing on one or two big trees, and you always have these loudmouths focusing on these big events. But what has decades of chasing rotting red herrings done for anyone? Nothing. Paranoia, fear, chemtrail lung, psychosomatic illnesses, whatever it is. It hasn't brought the Trutherville collective closer to truth. They're their own guardrails against it. Bad explanations, false explanations matter. That's why we are getting into this more skeptical realm. And we have to be skeptical of the anti-position. It's a no-brainer to call the news fake. It takes a little bit of discernment, though, to see how the alternatives are also fake and how they sell alternative thinkers on alternative shadows on the wall. All right, we'll be back tomorrow earlier. I have to re-up the lease here at the office, so I'm actually up here late, just kind of deciding how we're going to proceed for the next year. But I decided I'm staying here, obviously. This has been very productive. But I want to set up a desk here for interviews, and I want to improve the audio and a few other things. But other than that, everything's good, and I appreciate everyone's support. And of course, if you have any questions about the ISS sightings tomorrow, I'll put that in the newsletter, which I'll be sending out earlier, or just go to ips.monster. This is Auto Hoax or GTFO by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms.